Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my dear aspirants. It's been quite some time that we have interacted with each other, and I think this is the ripe time now that XAT is around corner. This particular session is to cater to your needs of decision making, which is one of the most important sections in XAT. Not because it is, very different or whatever, but because this is something that you are seeing for the first time, and it is not repeated in any other competitive exam as far as MBA entrance exam is concerned. Before I go ahead, I would request you guys to let me know if the sound is proper and clear. Whatever the introduction I just gave, if that sounded well without any echo, without any problem, please do mention that in comments, and I will wait for a minute to see your responses before I go on. Well, thank you so much, guys, um, for the response. And this is where we begin our session. Um, I just see that there have been three dislikes to this video. I have no idea, now that we have not even started yet, why this has been the case. So I might have to check it. But if there are any concerns that you are facing, technical or non-technical, please do let me know in the comment section. So here we begin, guys. This particular session is to give you a teaser, a preview. It's free of cost. Uh, and it is talking about what XAT exam is all about, Xavier's aptitude test. And then we will be talking about the decision making session, uh, how to take care of questions in any kind of decision making scenario. What exactly is the intent of a separate section known as decision making? How this kind of decision making is different from the other kind of reasoning and logical interpretation. There also you have to make a lot of decisions. So we will have to see all these things. And this is where we begin, guys. Let us quickly understand what this XAT is. Before I begin, I should tell you that they have extended the deadline to 10th of December now, which means if I talk about today, you have 4 days with you today and 3 more days before the deadline is over. So if you haven't applied so far for XAT, please do it. Why you should apply for XAT? There are a few reasons. First, XAT gives you the gateway to one of the most premier institutions of this country, which is XLRI. In this entire consortium of institutes that are that come under the helm of Xavier's, there are many institutes that will provide you quality education and really good return on investment. Which means if you want to do MBA, it is very important for you to take XAT seriously, especially if your CAT did not go well. Two of the most important institutes that come under this XAT exam that accept the scores are, of course, XLRI and XIMB, but there are many more institutes, and I will give you a quick snapshot of these institutes as well. If I talk about XAT, I think it's been 2 years now, more than 2 years now, that XAT has become online. Earlier it was a paper-based test, now it's in online mode. It is conducted by XLRI, which is the flagship institution of the entire consortium. Normally there are around 11, 12 member institutes, and the prominent ones I have already discussed. The application fee is 1700 rupees, and then they will charge you 300 rupees for each extra course that you want to enroll yourself for, which is something around, maybe for some people it could be 2000, for some people it could be 2500, 2300, etc. And the last important thing is that there is no essay writing test. Uh, Earlier there used to be 5 sections in XAT exam. Now there are only 4 sections in XAT exam. Another added feature this time is that XLRI is opening its new campus in Delhi. So people who want to be in Delhi, or who are in Delhi and want to stay closer to home, and also of course the number of seats, if we talk about now that another campus is opening, the number of seats will also be increasing. So now they have 2 campuses. The newer one is in Delhi. It's a good news. And these are the ZAMI members, as they call it, um, the member institutes that take XAT and then that fall under this entire consortium of Xavier's. Let us start with understanding what this XAT 2020 exam will be all about. XAT exam is conducted in 2 parts. First part contains the normal questions that you see in every competitive exam, in form of verbal ability, logical ability, quantitative ability, DI. But they have divided these things into 3 sections. The very first section they call is the verbal and logical ability section, and it contains 26 questions. The second one is decision making, which is the new type of thing that we'll talk about in just a little while. It contains 21 questions. And the third one is quantitative ability and data interpretation. It contains 27 questions. There are therefore total 74 MCQs. The overall time duration is 165 minutes for this. Not 3 hours, it's 165 minutes. Why they call it as 3 hours? Because then they will take your first paper, or first you will have to submit that paper, then you will be getting your part 2, and part 2 will contain only general knowledge questions. There will be 25 questions in total, and the time duration will be 15 minutes. So total questions, if you see, in part 1 and part 2 will be 99. Sometimes they may go to 100 as well. If I talk about the scoring, for percentile calculation only part 1 is considered. Now, if you have not scored well in GK, that might bring some consequences later for various institutes, but the percentile calculation will only happen from part 1 of that paper only. The marking scheme is generally +1 for correct answer and minus 0.25, which means 1/4 for every wrong answer. And number of options that you will be getting in every single question will be 5. In CAT it was 4. So this is the difference between the overall pattern of XAT and CAT. Now there is one more difference, that there is no sectional time limit in any of the sections, which means if you are good at one particular section, you might spend a little bit more time and earn more marks on that. Of course, you will have to go for some sort of sectional cutoff, which means you have to perform good in all the sections, but you have that flexibility of managing your time accordingly, which was not the case with CAT. Now that they give you some flexibility, of course, generally it is seen that the questions, the level of questions is a little bit on the higher side, which means you will find more difficult questions as compared to CAT. Let us talk about all of these sections. VARC and LR, which is the first section, we have already discussed number of questions. Normally, they go for 4 RC passages here and somewhere around 14 to 16 RC based questions, which is significant number, which means, a little more than half of your entire VA section constitutes reasoning comprehension. Then there are around 8 to 10 VA questions, and the VA topics are exactly the same: the critical reasoning, para jumbles, para completion, vocabulary, etc. The level of difficulty is moderate to very difficult. Understand this thing, guys. It is very difficult, and that is why for these 26 questions, you have, you know, almost 1 hour, which means 2 minutes per question, and that is good amount of time. Although there is no sectional limit, so you can divide your time accordingly. The second section is decision making. Now, decision making, I will take some time here to make you understand what this decision making is all about. You are going to be MBAs very soon, and you will be taking reins of various companies, various products, and various departments. There will come numerous situations in your professional career, professional life, wherein you will have to deal with ethical dilemmas, your emotions, and various other things that normally are not considered part of uh, normal professional goals. But as a manager, you will have to make and take these decisions. Imagine a situation where there is an employee who uh, who worked diligently for 2 years and was working in the plant of a company. Somehow, for some reason, this guy met an accident. The insurance cover that is provided by the various insurance providers, of course, the company is paying the premium, is say 5 lakh rupees. But this guy is not very rich, and the overall cost of this overall cost of treatment for this guy is somewhere around 10 to 15 lakh rupees. Now, if this guy got injured while performing on duty, will company reject his claim of rest of the 10 lakh rupees? I am not here to answer that question, but this is a dilemma. On one hand, company can always say that our policies do not cover it. On the other hand, company might value this person because life of a person that was put in jeopardy while this guy was performing on the job is also one thing to be considered. And this is where this entire management acumen comes into picture, where you will have to make decision as to how will you help him and to what extent. It could also be a problem like you had to hire a few people, but then you were coerced or you know motivated by any means to choose some less worthy person over someone else, and that also is something which is not valued, which is again a question on ethics. So this is how you will have to make and take decisions when you are sitting in that chair of a manager. This is what this entire section of decision making talks about. We will see a few questions. We will do these questions together and understand how do we take these decisions. Now, I'm sure you might be thinking that, come on, man, it's very easy to take, I know what is ethical, I know what is not ethical. I'll be able to do all these questions. Why are they even asking me that? You will see that the difficulty level of question is high because the options will be so close and the situation will be so much in gray area that you will really have to think hard to finalize what should be the real course of action. The third section that I need to talk about is quant and DI. It is going to be very similar to CAT. Of course, the level of questions will be a little bit difficult, and there are a total of 27 questions. When I say these question groups, that doesn't mean that this is the only syllabus. It can come from anywhere, but primarily it is seen that most of the questions come from these topics like time and work percentage, profit and loss, number system, clocks, geometry, algebra, mensuration, Venn diagram, tables, graph, etc. And the fourth one is GK section. It is the part 2 of this paper that will not be used for percentile evaluation, but it will be used for general evaluation. GK means general knowledge, which means I cannot really say what exactly is the syllabus, and that is why XLRI has also not given any specific syllabus of GK. Normally, the question topics, of course, revolve around current affairs of national as well as international importance. It will, of course, revolve around business, economics, social issues, appointments of people. Now, that we see that uh, the Chief Justice of India is being appointed, so it might also form one such question. For this, we already have a GK course running for XAT, and that is being taken by Mr. Prashant. But there are many things that GK entails, and therefore it is important that you focus on something which is important and something which has a greater probability to appear in the exam. Let us talk about decision making now. And I will wait for a minute here, and I would request you guys to read this caselet. The caselet says you are a human resource manager in the HR department of Vikas Educational Charitable Trust. Now you have to put yourself in that position. You organize and support recruitment and training. You provide secretarial support for disciplinary investigations and keep personal records of staff. You report to Miss Dileepa, one of the two senior HR managers who reports to the HR director. Understand this situation. This is how your questions will also be coming up in decision making section. They will be giving you a caselet, and there will be few questions, 3 or 4 questions that will be following that caselet. And then you have to think thoroughly what would be the best course of action given these situations. Let us read further. For the post of consultant professor in the trust, 2 internal candidates. Take care of every single word that is given. These are 2 internal candidates. Mr. Rana and Mr. Charan were interviewed. Mr. Charan was selected as he was considered to be academically gifted with impressive leadership skills, even though he had less experience than the other. 3 days later, Mr. Rana came to your office complaining that the selection was unfair as he had more experience than Mr. Charan. Before I show you the question, let us decipher this text thoroughly. They say that you are a human resource manager. Okay, then you are an HR manager. What's your job? Your job is to organize and support recruitment training. Organize and support recruitment and training. You provide secretarial support for disciplinary investigations, and you keep personal records of staff. Great. Now you report to somebody, one of the two senior HR managers. That means there is a hierarchy. There is an HR manager who is you. Then you are reporting to somebody who is a senior HR manager. And then this person reports to the director. So this is the kind of hierarchy, which means the decisions that you will take, of course, will be the decisions that must come from director and subsequently from the senior HR and then from you to be executed. So even if they give you some work, if they have provided you a particular way to do it, you are bound to do that in that particular way. For the post of consultant professor in the trust, 2 internal candidates were interviewed. One person was selected. Why he was selected? Because he was considered to be academically gifted. Now, this is something which is given, that he was academically gifted. He had impressive leadership skills, even though he had less experience than the other. Which means Mr. Charan was selected through a proper process because he was academically gifted and he had impressive leadership skills. But he had less experience. That means they valued the academics and impressive leadership skills more than the experience. The other person who was not selected came to the office complaining that this selection was unfair because he is believing that experience will be the most important criterion. This is what we need to understand from every caselet. It is not a story that they are telling you. Now let us see the question. Which of the following is the best way to handle the issue raised by Rana? So let us read all these and try to eliminate the most stupid kind of answers. Isn't it? So, if, for example, if Mr. Rana says, मैं आके मारूंगा, so, I'll just beat you. So, of course, that is a answer that must be, of course, eliminated because either Mr. Rana beats you or you beat Mr. Rana. Why have you come to my office? That doesn't make any sense in a management parlance. You would never do this thing to any person if you are a manager and you are, hearing somebody. So let us talk about all these options and let's start with E. E says, warn Mr. Rana that his complaint will be construed as misdemeanor and held against him in the next promotion. The moment you say this, you are saying that, hey, I have the power. If you raise any grievance, I will not take it as grievance, but I will take it on my ego and I will use this thing in your next promotion. Of course, as an HR manager, this is not what you would want to do. Not expected from you. E must not be the answer. Tell Mr. Rana that the institute finds the right person for the job, not the one who has been around the longest. Absolutely. This seems a good option. This seems a good option that you will tell this thing to Mr. Rana. But let me tell you one thing. Mr. Rana already knows that he has more experience than Charan, and Charan was hired and he was not. So Mr. Rana already knows that institute has chosen a person with less experience. Then if you will tell the same thing to Mr. Rana, hey Mr. Rana, can't you see that when we try to find right person for the job, we try to find the right person for the job, not the one who has been with the organization the longest. It is very repetitive in nature. Why do you even have to say this thing? Mr. Rana knows it. Offer tea to Mr. Rana and say that you can understand why he is upset. Now, so far it is okay. Of course, somebody has come and then you are welcoming this guy. Let us read a bit more. Let him have a bit of a moan and help him get it out of the system. The moment you say this thing that, hey, Mr. Rana, come on, tum aa jao, थोड़ी गालियां देते हैं, let's abuse the system so that, you get it out of your system. No, no, Mr. Rana, you were so right. It was not in my hands, etc. But, you will have to work this way. Absolutely not. When you are the part of entire process and you know that the process had been fair, so you will have to stick to that. You will not do anything which will directly or indirectly prove Mr. Rana that the things that happened with him were not fair. So you will not become that sink for him that you take this opportunity, this desk to get it out of your system, because you are not wrong. You did your proper job. Of course, this should not be the answer. Tell Mr. Rana that if he is interested, he could write to the HR director and you would act as per the directives received. Yes, this could be one course of action that, this guy is dissatisfied. So you can always suggest him to raise the grievance to the higher authority and then you would act as per directives received. So let us read A as well and then decide which is going to be the better one. Now guys, here one thing you need to understand. When I talk about decision making, it doesn't mean that there has to be one answer that will be correct and every other answer will be wrong. There will be one answer that will be more correct than the other answers. Understand this thing. That is why it is decision making. Tell Mr. Rana, let's read A, that you empathize with him, but the process was fair and the details of assessment could be shared with him. Now, of course, in both of these, A and B, A forms the right choice because here you are sticking with your stance that yes, the process was fair. And if the process was fair, why would you give him an opportunity that he can write to the HR director? Because eventually he will have to say the same thing, that process was fair. If there was a hint of process not being fair here in the text, then you could have used option B. But you have already told that he was considered to be academically gifted with impressive leadership skills, and you know that these are the qualities for any consultant professor or anybody in the management system, and that is why A has to be the answer. I will pause for a minute here and take any queries if you may have. All right. So if there are no queries, I will take it as a great feedback. And let us go to question number 2. The caselet is the same, guys. Let us see second question. Let us read this question together. Then I will give you, half a minute or so to think about the answer, and then I will reveal the answer. Miss Dilipa, if you remember, Miss Dilipa is that lady who is one of the 2 senior managers. Here it is written already. So they say that Miss Dilipa has asked you to conduct a non-teaching staff induction training. Okay, Miss Dilipa, your senior has given you a task. You are to call for a tender from various agencies with specifications that include the contents, duration, experience, budget, and other relevant information. You have to call for a tender. आपको एक tender निकालना है that I'm doing something, so this is what the tender is going to be. You then need to shortlist 5 agencies from the list of 20 and make a presentation within 2 days. So you have to call for a tender, and then these guys will provide you with what will be their content for non-teaching staff induction training, the duration, the experience, the budget, and everything else. Okay, which means all these things are going to be very important for taking the decision. Content, duration of the training, the experience of the people who will be taking the training, the budget, that means the money that the company will have to shell out to award this particular tender to somebody, and other relevant information. So we know 4 relevant information patterns, and then there is other relevant information that is also talked about. Then you need to shortlist 5 agencies from the list of 20 and make a presentation within 2 days. Review the following responses. Before reviewing these following responses, let me read the question for you. They say that select the best of the following responses in the descending order of effectiveness. That means the most effective, then less effective, and then the least effective, and top 3. Which means if there are 4 responses, there will be one such response that will be least effective and should not even be the part of your answer. Right? So let us see. They have said that these are the responses. Rate all 20 agencies on a scale of 1 to 5 on information available and select the top 5. Yes, makes sense. It's a good way. Select the 5 lowest bids based on the price quoted. Yeah, that is also one important thing that we need to consider because it's about the budget. Seek criteria from Dilipa and the HR director and shortlist the bidders accordingly. Yes, okay, perfect. Makes sense. Follow the advice of a person who has completed a similar task. Makes sense. Now let us see how much of these things are making sense. I will stop here for exactly 30 seconds and then you will have to mark your answer in the comment section. Start. We have received an answer as E. Okay. Come on, guys. Come on, do it. You cannot really be stopping right now. सिर्फ एक ही तो महीना रह गया है. Now I have got D as well. Okay. So I will continue, and meanwhile you keep on putting your answers. So let us read it. Understand this thing, that if you say that rate all 20 agencies on a scale of 1 to 5 on the information available and select the top 5. This is what you will have to do. This is what you will have to do. It makes sense. But is there something that will make this decision making less prone to questioning? Yes. Read the third one. Seek selection criteria from Dileepa and the HR director. So far, Miss Dileepa has asked you to conduct a training, and then you are to call for tender from various agencies, and the tender must include some criteria. But you don't know how to shortlist them, which means there is one way that you can do it on your own, and then there is another way in which some more experienced person who has to be responsible for this task can tell you how to do that. Your job is to mitigate the possibility of cross questioning and make the process the most fair and less error prone. This is what makes this third one as one of the most important responses. First, you seek the selection criteria from your senior, and then you shortlist the bidders accordingly. The second one, of course, will be the first one. Rate all 20 agencies. Now you're rating these agencies on the information that is available, and then you're selecting top 5. The third one could be second or fourth. So let us see which cannot be the answer. If I talk about this fourth one, follow the advice of a person who has completed a similar task. If you talk about follow the advice of a person who has completed a similar task, that means you are just reaching out to somebody. Man, have you done something like this? Yeah, I've done this. You just do this way. Why would you ask, an outsider who has completed a similar task? You would rather ask your immediate supervisor who has given you this task. So if I have to select between fourth and second, I would select second, because still the second one talks about choosing top 5 quotations on the basis of price, because that was one such criteria. Budget is something that you have to consider. So this guy believes, you believe that, okay, even if I just do not know what to do and nobody is around, then to make the situations so transparent and less prone to questioning, I will say that I decided it on the basis of budget of the company. So the one who quoted the least price is the one that I shortlisted as the first one. But if you say, because I did not know what to do, so I asked somebody who had done some kind of work, मैंने उससे तो पूछा था जिसने थोड़ा ऐसा कुछ काम किया है और मैंने वो काम कर दिया. So of course somebody might pounce on you someday and say, man, your process was unfair. How can you ask somebody कि इसको decide करवा लो and you just take it? Absolutely not. So always remember, as a manager, you are prone to cross questioning. People will ask you questions later. So your job is to select the most appropriate answer, and that's why the answer is E. This answer was given by Arvind and Ashutosh. Great, very good. Let's go ahead, guys. Same caselet. This is the question. Let us read the question. The Vikas Trust has recently been plagued by a high turnover of teaching assistants, with many looking for higher salary and better facilities. This trust currently, is seeing that we need a lot of new teaching assistants because a lot of teaching assistants are going away, and they are looking for higher salary and better facilities. Now that teaching assistants are going, so you need to fill them. Now you have been asked to design and run a campaign to attract and appoint 10 teaching assistants. Okay, guys. So you have to do what? You have to design the campaign. You have to run the campaign also. And what this campaign will talk about, you need to attract the teaching assistants and then you have to appoint. Which means there will be some sort of campaign. It could be ad, it could be anything. I'm just making it up. That you will have to do, that will be attracting them, and then you will have to appoint them as well. So the further job will also be with you. One of the measures of success will be the retention of the new recruits, which means you need to select people who will stay, and on their retention basis, your success will be measured. For example, if you hire these 10 assistants and all these 10 assistants leave you in, say, 4 or 5 months, then this is something that you don't want to do, because you will be rated accordingly. So you want people who would stick. And you have 4 weeks for the interview. Review the following. So let us once again read the question. Select the best of the following responses in the descending order of effectiveness. Descending order of effectiveness. That means the most effective, then less effective, then less effective. Again, they have given you 4 steps. There will be one step that will be least effective, and then you don't have to choose that. So let us see. Let us read all these and answer. First says, shortlist appropriate candidates who reflect values of the trust from among respondees to your wide advertisement campaign. Okay, makes sense. It makes sense, isn't it? Let's read the second one. Design an ad that attracts candidates with values that matches the trust. Release it at an appropriate time and revalidate the candidate's credentials at the time of shortlisting. Makes sense. Repeat the process that was followed by the trust last time. Okay, why should you repeat the process that was followed by the trust last time? Was it a good process? Try to think on these lines. Was it a good process? Absolutely, it would be a good process because they have been keeping and and hiring these teaching assistants for quite some time. Why would you not follow that? Seek expert advice on drafting and attractive advertisement. Perfect. Let's see what will be my course of action. Now, the moment you have to design and run a campaign, for the very first thing that you will do is to design. So you will design an ad that attracts candidates with values. Absolutely. See, shortlisting comes after you have some people from whom you have to shortlist. So first can never be the very first option. So when we talk about you have been asked to design and run a campaign, and then you have to attract and appoint. So first thing is to design. The design thing is being talked about in the second one. So the option A, C, and D will be eliminated. So let us read these three now. Now B says 213 and E says 234. So let us read all these and understand what has to be the case. If I talk about E, E says that first you design, then you repeat the process that was followed by the trust last time, and then you talk about the fourth one, seek expert advice on drafting an attractive advertisement. Once you have already designed the ad, will you then seek expert advice on drafting an advertisement? Absolutely not. So 4 is something that cannot come after second. So E again is gone, and you are left with answer which is B, which means 213. Now you might ask me that why we haven't selected A and C, because don't I have to seek expert advice on drafting an effective advertisement? Yes, of course you have to. Why not? If I talk about this thing that you have to seek expert advice first of all. For example, if you are talking about option number 3, option number C, then first you seek expert advice, then you say that you repeat the process that was followed by the trust last time. If you want to repeat the process that was followed by the trust last time, do you know whether the process included seeking expert advice? And if that was the case, will not that be redundant? ये तो उसमें ही include हो गया. Second thing, if you seek expert advice on drafting an attractive advertisement, but then you do not design that, how will it make any sense? So 431 cannot be the answer. Let us talk about the A part, 412. If you seek expert advice on drafting an attractive advertisement, and then you shortlist appropriate candidates, and then you design an ad, absolutely not. So you have to talk about the flow as well. And this is where a lot of students get confused that मेरे हिसाब से तो वो ठीक था लेकिन अभी तो ये गड़बड़ हो गई, ऐसे कैसे हो गया? My answer was okay. I think this is a very bad section. I don't want to play in this. No, it is very logical. It takes time. You are going to be managers. Let's go to the next question. Once again, the caselet is the same, and let us read the question. Oh, my bad. The question was repeated. Let's talk about this. The new induction training program has been a roaring success. That means your induction program was successful. All the new induction courses for the next 12 months have been tightly scheduled. This morning, you receive a call from Mr. Surya, the head of the trust, requesting you to train 8 newly recruited teaching assistants before they start their job next month. Now you're saying that the training program has been a success. All the new induction courses for the next 12 months have been tightly scheduled. But this morning you receive a call from somebody who is the head of the trust, and he has requested you to train 8 newly recruited teaching assistants before they start their job next month. Now on one hand you have a tight schedule for 12 months, and on the other hand you are receiving a request from the head of the trust that hey, please inko train kar do next month se pehle, because next month they have to start their job. You explain that all the slots are fully booked for next 3 months, but he insists that the new teaching assistants be trained immediately to hopefully reduce turnover among them. So he says that I have a valid reason that I need to have this thing done, come what may. You speak to Dilipa, who wants you to deal with the issue on your own. Now you go to your senior HR manager, and she says that apne aap dekh lo. Review the following responses that you wish to communicate to Mr. Surya. Now it's your job, guys. Let us read it. Once again, they have asked you to select the following responses in the descending order of effectiveness. The most effective followed by the least one. But this time, you see, all the 4 options will be taken into consideration. First says, inform him that once the schedules are drawn up, it is not possible to effect any change as the reputation of the trust would be at stake. Okay, that makes sense. Suggest that a new agency may be permitted to run induction sessions for these teaching assistants as a special case. Oh, this makes a lot of sense. Okay. Tell him that if some inductees drop out in the first month, at least some teaching assistants can be accommodated. Okay, but this doesn't it seem like that you are leaving it to chance? Okay. Tell him that since no space is available in the induction training sessions for 3 months, you would conduct induction sessions for them after office hours. And this also makes sense to some extent, but let us see what eventually is to be done. So again, I am giving you 30 seconds. Think about this question and mark your answers. Okay, so let us see that. If I talk about the second one, suggests that new agency may be permitted to run the induction session as a special case. It makes a lot of sense. Why? Because this is the way where you will not have to do any tweaking of the existing schedule which is already done. Plus it will be very fair on your part that whatever communication you have already given to various teaching assistants will not have to be changed. So it will preserve the uh, overall integrity of the organization as well. So of course this makes sense. 2 has to be the most important one. If I talk about third one, tell him that if some inductees drop out in the first month, at least some teaching assistants can be accommodated. Yes, this also makes sense. But if I talk about this thing, I already told you that this somehow seems that you are leaving things to chance. If you are leaving things to chance, will that be an effective way to manage a situation? Absolutely not. So after 2, 3 should not come. Let us read the first one. Inform that once the schedules are drawn, it is not possible. Now this has to be the least important or least effective measure, because this is where you are telling the person that I will not be dealing with this situation in the form of getting some solution. So this way you do not bring any solution to the table. And if you do not bring any solution to the table, of course, it has to be the last step. So last step is 1, first step is 2, and this is coming only on in the fourth part, which is D. But before I mark this thing, I need to review and understand this thing. Let us read the fourth one. Tell him that since no space is available, you as HR manager would conduct induction sessions. Now, see one thing. Maybe you are not specialized, but you know how to do that because you have been doing this thing. They have entitled you to do this entire induction training program by any means, which means you are aware of such problems. You know how to deal with such problems. So the very first thing that you will have to do is to bring in some new agency who can train them really well. Perfectly all right. If there is no training agency available or you cannot do that, of course you will do that on your own, because again your job is to do. If still you cannot do that on your own, so you want to keep the agencies and the schedules intact, then you will rely on the chance, but you will still give this guy an opportunity to think that कुछ हो जाएगा sir, कुछ तो हो जाएगा. Maybe if some inductees drop out, then I will be able to accommodate you, but still you are doing it, which has to be the third one. And the fourth one, and the least effective and uh, the least needed one, will be the case when you say that I cannot do anything. So 2, 4, 3, 1 has to be my answer, which means D. So we have been asked a question, that is chronology more important or effectiveness of the steps involved? Effectiveness of the steps involved is the most important. But you need to understand one thing, that effectiveness takes the aspect of chronology in it. Would you mind, or would you do something which takes, say 5 months to do, but then you actually had to do it in 1 month? Now, of course, the option that is talking about an action that has to be happening after 5 months will be less effective than the one that has to be taken up first. So you simply cannot talk about chronology, that whatever is the most recent one I have to take. Of course, you will have to talk about effectiveness, but chronology is part of that effectiveness. Let's talk about the next one. Now, the caselet is changing. Sanchit Group of Hospitals seeks to improve the success rate and patient satisfaction rate by 100% in the next year. However, the management can't afford to send doctors for professional development outside the country, nor afford purchasing more equipment. So there is a group of hospitals, and what they want to do, they want to improve the success rate and patient satisfaction rate by 100%. If you talk about the success rate, which means the people who are being operated upon, maybe they do not die or whatever the case be, this could be success rate. So earlier, if 90% of the people lived, now they want to make it to 95%. This could be one aspect. The second thing is patient satisfaction rate, that patients must be satisfied, maybe by the dealing of the doctor or by the dealing of staff or whatever. But they say that management can't afford to send doctors for professional development outside the country. So if they want to make doctors, professionally more developed, there are two measures that they just cannot do. First, they cannot send them outside the country, and they cannot, of course, afford purchasing new equipment. As an in-house measure, the managing board thought of having doctors with high patient satisfaction to mentor those with less. So they thought that because we do not have enough money or budget, let us call in the doctors whose patient satisfaction rate is higher, and then these will be mentoring the ones whose patient satisfaction rate is lower. Now, most of the doctors found it an interference by the management, judgmental, and an expression of distrust, which is very obvious, that most doctors said that, okay, they have sent this guy to train us because our satisfaction index is less, इनको बहुत ज़्यादा आता है, हमें कम आता है. So this is the kind of things that doctors thought. There were, however, some isolated few who found it a novel way of learning from each other. So most of the doctors, understand this word, most of the doctors found it an interference, but there were few who found it a great way. The doctors felt the management should instead increase consultancy fees and spend more on recruiting more paramedics who could spend time with patients, rather than blame doctors and dedicated to call it quits. Now, and decided to call it quits. My bad. What doctors are feeling, guys? Doctors are feeling that the reason of this thing, this less satisfaction, is probably the consultancy fees. So maybe they should increase the consultancy fees, and they should recruit more paramedics who could spend time with patients. According to doctors, increasing the consultancy fees and recruiting more paramedics will improve the success rate and patient satisfaction rate. And they say that they should not blame doctors for that. For the management, this would mean loss of patients, because if they decided to call it quits, for the management, of course, it means loss of patients. So here is your question. Consider the following actions. Which of the following sequence of actions is most appropriate for hospital administration in achieving their goal? Let us read all five. And they have given you three in the answers, so you have to decide the top three. Sequence of action here is being talked about. That means the first action, followed by next action, and followed by next action. Conduct a survey of all stakeholders and ascertain their needs and suggestions. Okay, makes sense that if doctors are the stakeholders, you have to take them into account. You have to understand their needs. You have to take their suggestion, then maybe do something about it. Build consensus among doctors and paramedics on the possible way forward. Again, it makes sense. Prepare an action plan that details the roadmap along with financial implication. That also makes sense, because without the financial implication into consideration, you cannot really do this. It is important. That is why they said that they can't afford to send doctors. Design differential service packages based on affordability of patients. Now, if they want to improve the patient satisfaction rate, then they have not distinguished that we want to increase the patient satisfaction rate by means of how much a patient can afford to. That means for all the patients they are talking about, which means you cannot design a differential service package. This is wrong. Not needed. Run a brainstorming session among the leading doctors of the area. If you are talking about leading doctors of the area, that means again, the people who have the problem with this entire system are not being taken into consideration. If the previous uh, decision of yours that let us bring in doctors that have better satisfaction index to mentor those that have less satisfaction index did not go down well with the doctors, how do you think running a brainstorming session among the leading doctors of the area will do any good? It would rather have been beneficial if you had run a brainstorming session among the stakeholders of that hospital. So that also makes no sense. So if I talk about 1, 2, and 3, how do I do that? Of course, if I have to create a sequence, the very first thing is I need to understand. So first has to be the case. Once you understand the needs and suggestions, then you will build consensus among doctors that this is what you said and this is what we need to discuss on, and then bring a consensus among doctors and paramedics on the possible way forward. And the final thing will be, once you have decided on all these things, then you prepare an action plan with the financial implications. So the answer to this one is E, 1, 2 followed by 3. The last one is, which of the following decisions is most likely to satisfy all the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders we need to understand? Stakeholders would be the management, the managing board, the doctors, the paramedics, right? So we need to understand something which is related to all these, which is most likely to satisfy all the stakeholders. Increase the income of doctors and paramedics and the ambience of hospital. Yes, it will satisfy all the stakeholders, because doctors have said that we will not follow the steps that you have given us initially, that we will not be working under some other doctor. It is better that you increase the consultancy fee and recruit more paramedics. So of course that will satisfy the stakeholders. On the other hand, if you think that what about finances, they have not said that finances cannot be managed. Now it could also be possible that sending the doctors outside the country would be much more costly as compared to increasing the consultancy fees, because consultancy fees is not being borne by the hospital, it is being borne by the patients. Give 30% discount on medicines purchased from hospital store. We have no idea whether discount on medicines is at all a part of patient satisfaction. So we cannot talk about that. Plus, the important stakeholders that we are talking about here are the doctors and the paramedics. We are not talking about patients. So this is gone. Increase the income of doctors and number of paramedics. Now, increase the income of doctors, yes, it makes sense. And number of paramedics. Here, there is a difference between A and C, wherein in C you talk about less number of stakeholders. So if you improve the ambience of the hospital, it will help patients also, because that also contributes to the patient satisfaction rate. On the other hand, here you are just talking about increasing the number of doctors, increasing the income of doctors and number of paramedics. First talks about increasing the income of doctors and increasing the income of paramedics. Now, if income is one of the most important criterion, then you will have to make that take that into consideration, plus something else as well. So if I have to choose between A and C, I already have a better option, which is A. Raise the income of doctors and reduce the waiting time of patients. Again, we do not know whether waiting time was one of the criterion that reduced patient satisfaction rate. So if you raise the income of doctors and reduce the waiting time of patients, maybe the first thing can help, but second thing we have no uh, information on. So this also cannot be the answer. E. Allow doctors to choose patients based on income level. I should not even read this because we have already nullified that. So the answer here is A. And this is how, guys, you understand decision making section. This is how you understand the caselets. This is how you evaluate the caselets. You really do that surgical operation of the caselet to understand what exactly is being talked about and what is needed. You will not bring any of the notions from outside. If you feel something that something must be done or should be done, because it is because of humanity and whatever. You cannot do that. The important thing is that whatever is given in the caselet, you have to understand that objectively, and then you have to decide on the basis of the information given in the caselet. This is where we conclude our teaser session for today, guys. If you like this session, please hit like, subscribe to our channel, share it with people, especially your fellow aspirants. They will really get a lot of help out of this. And then, if you like it, please do enroll for the XAT DM course of ours that is starting from 10th of December. This is the link, tinyurl.com/DM Prepzone. This will take you to the payment gateway. It is very, very cost effective. It is 500 rupees. And then we will be starting our classes from 10th of December for decision making. What we'll be giving you in that course, of course, it will be a mix of recorded and live sessions, so that you can manage your various other exams effectively. Even if you are not able to attend a live session, the session will not be lost. We will be giving you assignments that you will have to do, and then we'll be doing some live sessions on these questions that I'll be giving you as assignments. So overall, there will be a lot of practice that we'll be doing in this entire span of December. It will be evenly spaced after a few days, so that there is not immediate burden on you to understand decision making and do everything at once and then forget before you eventually sit for the exam. So each and everything has been well curated. No worries about that, about the course curriculum and the way we are going to deliver. If you like it, please do subscribe to our course as soon as possible, and let us meet on 10th December on the Facebook group, which is going to be secret group for all the aspirants of ours. Thank you so much, guys. I will wait here for a minute or two. If you have any questions, please do comment, and then I will try to answer to the best of my ability. Do not restrict your questions to decision making only. Feel free to ask me questions pertaining to XAT as well. All right, guys. Because there are no more questions that are being asked, thank you so much for attending this, and hope to see you soon. All the very best for XAT.